Have you ever wondered what an iPhone truly costs? I'm not talking about what an iPhone costs Apple to manufacture. I'm talking about what an iPhone will personally cost you over the long term. And if you want to build wealth, it's really important to understand this so you can decide between adding to your bottom line or Apple's. So I can hear some of you saying, I'm not interested in iPhones, but I want you to know that the numbers here are applicable for lots of other purchases as well. So what we need to consider is the opportunity cost. And the opportunity cost refers to the next best use of your time or money. So if you weren't going to buy this iPhone, what would you be able to spend that money on? Now, since I have no way of understanding the personal trade-offs you're making when you consider buying a new iPhone, I'm going to just stick to investment returns. Now, new iPhones range from $550 up to a whopping $1,449, and that's before adding sales tax. Now, sales taxes in the US range anywhere from between 0% in a state like Oregon all the way up to 10+%. Since we have no income tax in Washington state, we have a higher sales tax and some pretty crazy property taxes. So my sales tax would be 9%. But for this example, we're going to look at a 5% sales tax. So when we add a 5% sales tax, that brings the numbers up to $577.50 for the lower priced iPhone, the one that's 3 or 4 years old model-wise. And on the high end, it skyrockets that price up to $1,521.45. Now technically, you can get a $450 iPhone new from Apple, but this iPhone only comes with 32 gigabytes of storage space, and the operating system uses a lot of that space. So it kind of defeats the purpose of buying an iPhone. So instead of buying a $577 iPhone, you could invest that money over 40 years and it would grow to $1,800. That's 3.27 times the original price. Now, if you were to buy that $1,500 iPhone, it would grow to a painful $4,962. That's nearly $5,000. I mean, who could imagine a new iPhone could end up costing you $5,000? That's just the first iPhone, and there's been 10 or 11 of them out so far, so you can see how these numbers really add up. So I want you to keep in mind, these estimates are using very realistic returns. Or reasonable returns. They're not overly optimistic. It's using a 3% annual return, and we've eliminated inflation from the equation. So these are real dollars we're looking at. That's a real $5,000 phone if you compare the purchase of it now versus what your money would grow to over 40 years. Now, most of us know somebody who usually has to have the latest phone, and they upgrade really regularly. Let's look at what happens to somebody who purchases that new iPhone every year and gives the old one away, hands it down to a spouse or a child or a friend. Well, over 40 years, that $578 iPhone upgrade would cost you a whopping $44,889. That's enough money to buy a new vehicle or even retire a year early. Now granted, most of us don't buy the new iPhone every year and then give it away to friends or family. But most of us do spend more and save less than we should. So these insane numbers are still pretty useful. Now, what would happen with the more expensive iPhone? Well, over 40 years, that $1,500 iPhone would grow to a whopping $118,000. I'll say it again. That $1,500 iPhone purchased annually would grow to $118,000. Just imagine if you were investing that money for yourself each year instead of giving it over to Apple. So obviously this is the worst case example. I don't think most people buy the high-end phone and then discard it annually. I think they sell it. They probably recoup a lot of their cost, although maybe not as much as they think. So let's look at one more example. What happens if you invest $1,000 annually for 40 years. Well, at the end of that 40 years, your investment would have grown to $77.6 thousand, or maybe even more. Well, that's enough to buy 1 to 2 cars, retire a couple years early, and that was just simply from saving $1,000 a year. So hopefully you can see some of the implications of that gotta have the new iPhone habit. It has real long-term repercussions for you. So given this new knowledge, is a new iPhone worth it to you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And the question of the day, what phone are you using and why? I recorded this video on my old iPhone 6S, which is still my primary phone. I don't even know why I said primary, because it's my only phone. It's still going strong, except for the battery. As always, I really appreciate you sharing this video and liking it. And if you're interested in building wealth and being free, don't forget to subscribe.